Well, it's the end of the year. Welcome to our shop. I've been a teacher for about 10 years and predominantly a wood shop, metals, high school shop teacher. But this video is twofold. One, it's for the incoming student to see what we have here. And two, it's for those of you that operate in a shared space. I'm thinking of makers, maybe if you're a college professor, maybe if you're a fellow shop teacher like I am. These are some things that I've learned over the course of a decade to keep myself sane and keep some semblance of organization in a workshop space where we have multiple people coming in and out. We have multiple age levels, and I need to find things, organize things, and keep things so I can actually function as a teacher. Enjoy. The first thing that I like to mention is I like to think about flow. I like to make things as easy as possible. The first thing that students are going to do when they walk through the door, aside from donning on their safety glasses, is probably grab their measuring tools. So on this back wall, which we call the brown wall, we have everything that's typically measuring related. We have tape measures, up right here, big drywall squares, box cutters, combination squares, speed squares, all the other various assorting, chalk lines, levels, etc. So I can just say, hey, go to the measuring wall, go to the brown wall, grab a tape measure, grab a speed square, and they know instantaneously where that is. And it also has a spot to go back to, which is a key part. So another thing we have up here is I call it the clipboard wall. And these are the most commonly used pieces of paperwork in the shop. I have something called work tickets. I have our current plan set, what we're building from. There is also something called the no fun chair. Students that consistently forget their items, whether it be safety glasses, they have to sit out and they cannot actually participate in shop activities. And that's to incentivize them to bring them, teach them our responsibility. Not to mention, it also saves me a lot of heartache in regards to students getting something in their eyeball. So this is the clipboard rack. Okay, over here we have our newly built sanding. This will eventually be added to it. So everything that's sanding, abrasives, consumables will go on that rack. What else can I tell you about this? QR codes. Oh, there's a QR code right here. Most common thing students will do with this thing is a combination square is they'll take it apart and they'll lose all the pieces. And then they'll come back to me with a handful of combination square pieces. So what I did is I put together a YouTube short. I'll link those below. And students can actually run up, they can pull out their phone, scan the QR code, and it's a 1-minute short video showing them how to reassemble this. My goal is to eventually have QR codes throughout the shop with everything. So this is a sliding T-bevel. I'd have a QR code. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to replicate myself. There is not enough of me to go around with 20 students in a class trying to build something, keep a handle on safety, blah, blah, blah. What I can do is just say, hey, go over, scan that QR code, come back in a minute and show me what you've learned, or rewatch it. And that's usually enough to keep them moving and sort of get them on my hair so I can focus on those students that do need help. So over here we have our CNC, and once again, I like to think about instant retrieval. On this wall, this is newly built this year, we have all of our most commonly bits. We have our flash drives. We also have the wrenches, which are required to remove the bit out of the spindle / router. There are dust collection fittings here for the shroud. And basically everything that we could possibly need for the CNC is right next to the CNC, even down to the Allen key, which is actually used to tighten this shroud right here. So I do not want to be running across the shop hunting for things. So 99% of the time, I would love for whatever I need for the machine to be right next to the machine in a designated spot. So next thing I'd like to talk about is these workbenches. We've recycled these. The tops are actually from older workbenches that we cut up and repurposed. Down below, we take all of our shorts, all of our miscellaneous pieces, and we've actually attached these as a platform down here. Students store all of their project pieces. At some point, I'd like to get bins that would fit on here, and we can put Tony's bin, Susie's bin, or whatever else it is. So students have a place to put their things, so they're not constantly coming up to me and saying, hey, I lost my piece of whatever. I can't find my piece of whatever. Additionally, we have these on the side. These are just 1x material with a 1/2-inch gap in them. And that's so students can actually place their tools and it's not a cluttered mess. These will get sanded down every couple of years. We put a new coat on them. They're not by any means fancy, but they're practical and they work. Behind me, we have our hammering wall, let's call it. So we have claw hammers, mallets. We also have crowbars over here, and we have glue storage right now. That'll change. But once again, I want you to notice the color. So I can say, hey, go to the orange wall. I do have some very basic tags here. I like to improve these and actually put a label with a tool image on them. So newbie students, newbie people to woodworking, metalworking, whatever else, I can say, hey, go to the orange wall, match the tool to the picture on the wall, hang it up in this right spot, so I am not burdened with constantly putting stuff away. So this right here is a brand new acquisition. At some point, I'd like to make a video about how awesome of a piece of machinery this is and why I fully endorse Saw Stuff. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I do think they're an amazing piece of machinery. And I've had 10 years, and I've probably had, I don't know, that 10 years, I've had my hands on every single model. Let's see, what would that be? Probably 9 to 10 table saws, at least. So I could talk about the wearable parts. I could also talk about the times that we set the brake off. So if that's something that interests you, leave me a comment. Maybe at some point, if I get enough traction, I'll make a video about that too. But the reason I brought you over here is this thing right here, QR code for a riving knife. Students constantly have to pull this out, switch out the riving knife. And once again, I teach that, but 10% probably remember it 2 weeks later. So I can say, hey, scan that QR code, fumble your way through it, come see me at the very end, I check it, boom, they're off to the races and they're moving again. They're not standing around waiting for me to instruct them. There's now 2 of me in the shop where there was once 1. So coming around, we have 2 joiners here. We also have a cordless miter saw, but we have wooden scrap bins. All the scrap that we generate goes into those wooden scrap bins. Everything that generates scrap has a bin below it, and theoretically all of the scrap ends up in there. We then take that scrap, we process it, we put it into cardboard boxes that we get from our local cafeteria, and that actually goes out on the curb with a sign next to it saying free scrap, free kindling, and I don't have to deal with that waste. It just disappears, which is awesome. Additionally, over here we have our jointers. What do you most commonly need on a jointer? Push sticks. This machine freaks me out when I first teach students on it, but we have every single type of push stick that's here. Once again, a student-built organizer, and if the student did do a great job, we'll rebuild it next year or 2 years down the road. This wasn't quite the vision that I had in my brain when I said, hey, so-and-so build me a push stick organizer, but it works. Once again, if it's right there, the student is more likely to use it, and there's less of a safety issue for me later on. These are a new acquisition. My upper level construction class, we do a lot of work outside. So once again, I'm trying to think about flow. Students grab their tool belts, everything else they need, and they head out the door. You'll also notice by the door we have extension cords because we always bring those out. Additionally, labels. I bought these off of Uline. Hit me up in the description if you want a link to the exact type or whatever else. And I label absolutely everything. I find that if there's a label on something, I can usually point and say, hey, go get it, or I can usually maybe remember where stuff has been put. Yeah, flow. Garage door, open up the garage door. Lumber rack is right here on my left. Once again, we are working the least to accomplish the most. This right here is an awesome tool. It's called Jaw Horse. It's actually a foot actuated vise, and it allows you to clamp something down. So that's holding all my weight just with that clamping force. So what I have here is my drill rack. It's everything drill, battery charging, bits, etc. They're all stored here. I think I ordered these off of Amazon. I'll put some links below if you desire. But we have everything that is possibly drill related. Drills are hung up here. These are just magnets, and attached to these magnets are our most commonly used bits. At some point, I'd love to standardize all our fasteners, get rid of everything except for Torx-headed fasteners. It would make my life so much easier in regards to sorting, sweeping, and standardizing. Once again, they're color-coded. At some point, I'd love to put QR code on here about how to use the drill properly, how to not suck when putting in screws, etc. On the left-hand side here, we have all our saws, but basically this is our sort of our power tool, if you will, wall. Corded tools, if I had the money, I would have gotten rid of all of them, but I don't have the money. So we've been gradually phasing out the corded or the cordless, and we're using the most common. So we have a couple cordless saws now, and as the years progress, this will become more and more battery driven. So moving around, this is our glue up area right now. This is just I think a U-line cart that's absolutely full of clamps. Once again, it's on wheels, we can move it to where we're gluing up. And it never usually looks this orderly, quite honest, during the course of the school year, but it's a place to put things. Bigger clamps, bar clamps, pipe clamps are stored underneath the staircase here. We also have a pallet jack, which has been incredibly useful as the years progressed. And we also have these garbage cans. On the floor, I just drew on with a Sharpie saying, put the trash can here. And there's 3 of them. At some point, I'd love to put a big old red sign on here that just says trash only, no wood, but that's yet to come. So once again, behind me, we have our most commonly used hand tools. We have wrenches, we have hand planes, some random wire strippers, screwdrivers. These tubs, eventually I would love to have them have a glue scraper, a bench dog, a sander, and basic sort of bench tools would all be stored in there. We have storage underneath here. Once again, labeling everything, whose is whose. So all of our machinery is typically organized into pods, and I'm also thinking about flow. So all of our material comes in through the garage door over there. It's typically stored, or it's broken down into smaller bits and pieces, whether it's steel or metal or wood or whatever else. Okay. It's stored on the racks. Typically your first stop, if you have a rough piece of lumber or a rough piece of steel, or a rough piece of steel, long piece of steel, what am I talking about? Long piece of steel is you typically want to cut it down. So we have a miter saw, and we have a jointer and a jointer. We also have a metal bandsaw over there as well. So the material's processed down. Next stop is typically a joiner. So the joiners are also over there. Once again, we're moving in sort of a big circle. We typically go from jointers to either the planer or the table saws, which are to my left here. We have two table saws. After you process it on the table saw, your next stop is probably going to be the planers. After planers, you're moving on to either glue up, which is over here, or assembly, which is the benches that are sort of interspersed between. And we have a wide belt sander here as well. It's sort of my personal philosophy that I think cabinets are bad. I think things with doors on them are bad, because what happens is invariably the person will throw it in there, shut the door, and then you are responsible for finding it or pick up their mess. So our walls are at a premium right now. We are currently attaching every single tool that we own to the walls. And like I said before, I want to make this as easy as possible. So we have our broom storage here. We have our slop sink. Extra soap goes here. We ran out. This is an awesome piece of thing. This is actually, this is an awesome thing for any shop. This is a quick fix Band-Aid dispenser. So if you pull this out, it actually peels off half of the Band-Aid for you, and you're ready to go. So once again, easy. I don't have to run next door to my desk or some first aid kit. I can say, hey, go to the wall, sink, get yourself a Band-Aid. I believe this is an Amazon acquisition. Hit me up in the comments if you want to make and model, brand, or whatever else. I'm not affiliated with them or anything. Unless they want to sponsor me, which would be cool. Anyways, additionally over here, we have what's called our shopping list and also punch list projects. So I have to order, I don't even know. I spend so much time shopping as a shop teacher, and that's ironic. Maybe that's where the term shop teacher came from. But there is bits and pieces of machinery, project pieces, and everything else. I can't keep all that in my brain. So I have a dry erase list right here that students can write on. I also have an electronic version that is a Google Sheets, and that Google Sheets is on my phone. So occasionally I'll update this with my phone, and then if I'm sitting at the lumber store and I'm trying to remember, hey, I needed a bolt, I can actually pull it up on my phone and see, yep, that is the exact fastener that I needed, and I can order that, and I don't have to keep all that in my brain. Additionally, we have something called punch list projects. This is stuff that needs to happen in the shop. That could be something needs to be fixed. A lot of these tool boards that you see were built by students, and that's typically towards the end of the year. You have the student or person that's done, they're getting anxious. I say, hey, what sucks around here? What are we consistently looking for? Put a piece of wood on the wall, figure out a way to organize it, and put a tag on it. And sometimes they turn out, sometimes they don't. If they don't, there's always next year, and we are once again, we are continually improving. So it's the end of the year and I'm wrecked. Man, I'm wiped. It's always a sort of hurdle to get everybody over the finish line, myself included. But if you are a shop teacher, or if you are a person that made it this far in the video, I don't know how long it's going to be yet, but I would love it if you'd hit that subscribe button, / leave me a comment. I'm in a very rural school. I'm a department of 1. I get department of 1, industrial arts, whatever else they call us. And these are things that I've learned in a decade of teaching that have made my life a bit easier. And I'm sure you have great ideas too, and I would love to hear them. So once again, thanks for watching. Oh yeah, this is a project that we are 3/4 of the way done. We got to install this next year at the Playhouse. Built out of cedar that was locally milled. Maybe I'll do a video about that too. It's summer. Cheers!